Yeah, so as the welcomes go, so welcome to our presentation on embracing a modern workplace in higher education. As mentioned, I'm Andy Mahede. I'm a senior technical consultant, technical specialist at Insight, and I was the lead consultant for helping Murdoch for the part of this project. And
Julie Whitlock, so I'm the Associate Director of Digital Innovations at Murdoch University. I was the product owner on this project, and my substantive role is really to look after our front-facing, customer-facing solutions, such as our website, student portal, and our staff intranet. And we're really pleased to be presenting to you from sunny Perth today. Before we start, we would like to give you a welcome to country acknowledgement. We are sitting on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar Nation, and we acknowledge them as traditional custodians of this country and its waters, and that we stand on Noongar country. We pay our respects to Noongar's elders past and present, and acknowledge their wisdom and advice in our teaching and cultural knowledge and activities. We also acknowledge that Murdoch University has always been a place of learning, and we're very proud to continue this tradition.
Cool. So why does a higher education want or looking to drive for a modern workplace? Now, obviously, things are moving more and more digital. Staff and students are craving those digital interactions. Your phone is becoming more your way of life. You're talking to people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and a lot of your interactions are now digital. So you obviously want to try and bring that into your workplace environment as well, and your learning environments especially. In the higher education space, there's a lot of competitions between institutions, both locally and internationally, for students, academics, researchers, and even just the professional staff to get the best out of your organisation and the higher education space. So you obviously want to bring them in with that digital, you want to draw them in with a top of the class, top line modern workplace, so that they know that they're going to be working in the best environment that's going to be for them. There's always going to be a demand for high quality services and experiences, which kind of leads into that competition as well. So you want your services and experiences to be the best in class, and to be able to draw those people in. And lastly, higher education is quite unique in the way that it needs to connect not just disparate campuses, but also the faculties can be quite disparate and separate as well as the different user types who are on campus and need to access the modern workplace. So also, again, exclusively to higher education, the challenge is they're decentralized user bases. You've got students, you've got academics, you've got researchers, and you've got professional staff, all who have different wants and needs from their day-to-day interactions in a modern and digital workplace. And also the separation of that content, not just for the news or the information you want to get to people, but also in the scale. Murdoch has around 23,000 students, so trying to get information out to them and target the people who you need to target is also a big challenge. And lastly, higher education can sometimes be difficult and bureaucratic in the nature of decision making, things going to committees and steerco. So you need to ensure that when you're engaging in a modern workplace, that you understand that landscape and how it's going to work. So the intranet in a modern workplace is really the core and the start of a modern workplace and a digital workplace journey. It's the one place where you can centralize all your communications and start to inform people, where staff can then begin to interact and start to bring their day-to-day work into into a digital workplace, and start to branch out from there, which they can then start to collaborate, where they're sharing documents and working with documents, and it all needs to start and generate from we believe the intranet, which is the core part of a digital workplace.
So let me tell you a little bit about Murdoch University. We're located in Perth, Western Australia, and we feel quite lucky actually in Perth, because we only have 4 active coronavirus cases that are well quarantined and no community transmission. So as one of the most remote cities in the world, we do feel quite lucky living here. And we're one of 4 major universities in Perth, and we have over 23,000 students, 1,700 staff, and campuses also in Singapore and Dubai. We're the second oldest university in Perth, and we're really known for being a little bit alternative and a little bit different. So we think that the student of the future needs to learn to think for themselves and think a bit differently. So we do try and do things a little bit different here. So in terms of our actual intranet and digital workplace, our journey has started quite a long time ago, 4 years ago, when our new director of IT was appointed. And they initiated a 5-year strategy that was really designed to reduce the bespoke platforms that we had previously built in-house and really turn it into a buy and subscribe platform strategy, where we don't try and build everything ourselves. We actually subscribe to the platforms that are fit for purpose. And that started with transforming our website platform in 2017. We had a new service management platform in 2018. And last year we had a big year. We not only launched our staff intranet, we moved to Microsoft 365, launched a new student portal, and implemented an integration competency centre, which really is starting to be the connector for all of these platforms. And this year we're moving into 2-factor authentication and managed cloud. So we're really trying to transform all of our technologies. And with the staff intranet, we started with the selection of a vendor of which Insight were selected. And Valo was the platform we felt was going to most suit us to really initiate quickly and be able to be flexible enough so that we could deliver something that was very compelling for our staff. However, we were starting from a low base. So what you can see here is our old, what I would call a link farm page. Our landscape was, we had hundreds of content pages, mainly sorted by departmental structure. It was very hard to use, a very high dependency on IT to make any changes to this platform. It actually wasn't a platform, it was a bespoke build. And we really did not feel clearly that it was fit for purpose. And what we also found was our staff mainly relied on email for communication. So everything was done via email and really wasn't fit for the amount of communications that a good organisation needs to keep its staff engaged.
Sorry.
So our project brief to the Insight team and for our intranet was to not only increase staff satisfaction with their digital workplace, but to put a one-stop shop for reliable information and really be future ready for where we're going as we evolve. And we have a lot of platforms we need to decommission and really get rid of a lot of content because most of it was out of date. And I guess the main goal is then to increase usage and engagement with our staff, bring a sense of community, but also get rid of those emails out of people's inboxes that really got lost our academic staff can get hundreds of emails a day. And the goal really was to launch quickly and iterate from there. So we weren't starting with we want everything perfect. We actually started with how do we launch and then how do we migrate and put well-crafted content onto our intranet and evolve as we go. So that was really a key part of this brief, was to get something out there and then continuously improve from there.
So how did we do that? Really, one of the first steps we did was a discovery phase where we took the brief that Julie and Murdoch had given us and start to iterate on that and dig a little bit deeper. Then once the discovery phase, looking to really start that quick iteration into a launch and pilot. So that was quite a quick phase. It only took us about 12 weeks once the discovery phase was complete, and then a further 2 weeks from the pilot to gather feedback and implement some changes and alleviate any concerns, and then really move into that launch phase. And then once we were there, just that ongoing refinement that Julie's mentioned. So looking at the content and looking at how we can improve the intranet, gathering feedback, and adding some new features to the intranet as we went along. So really wanting to go through, I guess, some of the key phases that we had as a part of the project. And the first one of those really was the discovery phase. The discovery phase was quite key and instrumental in getting everyone talking the same language and on board, so that when we completed the discovery phase and start the implementation, everyone understands the direction we're going, the direction Murdoch's going with the intranet, as well as how we're going to get there and what's going to be implemented initially to what's going to be looking ahead to kind of future-proof the intranet as well. Our user experience teams are excellent at this discovery. They've got all the research. They put a lot of work into interviews and workshops, and to gather all that information about the brief and where the pain points are, to start to visualize some of these problems and provide that feedback back to the senior stakeholders, so that they can understand what the intranet is, as sometimes intranets can be a bit blurry. They can seem to leak a little bit at the edges, but we really wanted to implement this discovery phase to ensure that everything was as tight as we can make it. So our user experience experts took these interviews and the research and had vision statements, vision and problem statements to get everybody on board. There was some card sorting activities and the results from those to kind of show the direction that people understood Murdoch's content and how that was there. And personas, especially spending time with not just the professional staff, but also spending time with the researchers and the academics to understand their pain points and understand what they want out of an intranet, which lastly led to our roadmap. So from where we were as of yesterday to where we're going to the future for the intranet. Our implementation approach, now at Insight, we found that Agile is the best way to actually implement Valo intranets. The technology Valo allows for rapid implementation and iteration, which is kind of what Agile is. Those quick sprints and an iteration back to understand everybody's on the same page. Stakeholders sometimes also might not know their requirements until they see it in front of them. And so Valo allowed us to quickly implement something and then iterate and workshop with the stakeholders and everybody in the room to get the requirements and confirming them, so that they had something that is going to be fit for purpose, not just for the IT staff who we may have been talking to on the day-to-day, but also the communications staff and the HR staff who will also be interacting with the system. And lastly, Agile assists in allowing for priorities to change. As priorities often do, things will come into focus. COVID comes into focus and will throw things out of whack. But what we found is that Agile allows for that flexibility for us to focus more on, say, news and communication areas where we might deprioritize some of the content from the first few sprints, to then bring those, it's still captured and still there and available, so that when you're looking to the next sprints going forward, like, oh, that's right, we can still look at our content and bring those priorities back into focus. We did initially have some issues with Agile. Now, Murdoch were very new and all the project stakeholders were new to Agile. So understanding there were some challenges with some of the terminology we were using, the tool itself. So we used DevOps, and I think getting people used to using DevOps took a little bit of time, as well as was quite key. And once we got there was that stakeholder trust and confidence, and understanding that what we were delivering and how we were going to deliver that to best suit, and how Agile was going to help us with that. There are also some issues, I guess. Agile is quite key to understand your accountability's role and the processes, as well as looking at the scheduling of activities and resources in advance. Obviously, as priorities can change, you may look to schedule somebody in for the next sprint for them to 2 days before. That will change. Now, obviously, in a large organisation, that can be difficult, especially finding the right people and understanding who those people are. So it did take, but once we were able to find the right people and find the right information, we were able to schedule those people in with a sufficient amount of lead time to give them time to prepare, really. And our last key kind of point was prioritizing the non-technical elements. So I mentioned about the process, I mentioned about the discovery. An intranet is only as good as what it is beyond the project, because the project can come and can build and can implement, but what's going to happen once that phase is finished? Now, Valo allows us to really take that higher level consulting and not just focus on the dev test iteration, but also deliver high areas. So things like governance, we work with Murdoch to really get their governance tight, understanding those governance activities, understanding all of the different areas that can be focused on once the project team has left, and kind of disbanded as well. Information architecture, understanding how the information in an intranet will flow, when a news item is created by someone, does that go to the homepage? Where does that sit in the homepage? And how can somebody find that information going forward? Also looking at business processes in line with, I guess, that content creation. You need to understand who's going to be creating content and how that content gets created. Content strategy. Intranet is all about its content. So how is that content made up to date, especially given Murdoch's previous experiences with their old intranet and grouping, where it starts to become an unmanaged, ungoverned, wild west of outdated content and not very helpful information, to becoming a content strategy which says this information should sit in the intranet and it gets updated at this point. A certain other type of information, like a knowledge base, might not sit within the intranet, but it is still updated and it sits within this system, so that if somebody is looking for a specific type of content or to create, they know where it slots within Murdoch. And lastly, change management. The intranet being a core part of your digital workplace strategy and implementation path, you're looking at that change management to understand how things are going to change, where we can look to maybe decommission or depromote some older systems to fold into, to align with the content strategy, align with the new business processes, and assist with those change management activities, contacting people, getting the training that they need and everything else, so that when we roll out and when we launch, everybody has that information at hand. So yeah, so Valo's pre-built components, things like the news, things like the universal app, allowed us to focus on high level delivery. And a couple of those things were the search components that we were able to implement from a third-party search application into SharePoint, which we were able to focus on, as well as looking to assist the critical incidents management to also include the intranet in that strategy and help get that information out to people.
So what did we build? And if we get time at the end, we can show you a live site, but just to show you the design and the components that we've put in place. On the left-hand side, we've got the top of the homepage. We've got featured news and announcements, and then some top links, as well as staff directory, which was we know is a really key feature for our staff that was the main thing people used within our old system. But we also changed the navigation at the top to not be departmentally structured, but actually for use case, business need. And so we really started to split that out into working at Murdoch, teaching at Murdoch, researching at Murdoch, and then try and expand the services that sit within our organisation and the other parts of our university that people need. So there was, we really tried to start with a simple information architecture. And on the right there is the next layer down, which is promoting our events and training opportunities. We've just launched the tip of the day, which is a rotator that changes every day with a new tip or advice for staff, because higher education has a lot of things and a lot of different people need to know different things. So we're trying to lift up some of those things as a feature, because one of the biggest complaints from our staff is they'll say, I didn't know about X, and so we're trying to promote that. We've also got some banner features there, as well as a featured spotlight from our Vice-Chancellor, another spotlight around key research announcements or something that's worthwhile promoting. And then there's also People at Murdoch, which we try every week to rotate and feature a new person within the organisation and try and drive a sense of community and get to know each other and really build some engagement across our functions. And just at the bottom there, we have a suggestion panel, which is, do you have any more suggestions for our intranet? And it's really a great opportunity to use the idea management feature to have people engage and ask for more things that they would like to see. In terms of designated areas for staff, so I mentioned before teaching at Murdoch, there are teachers as a group have very specific needs, and they also need a lot of information to assist them in being the best teachers they can for our students. And they have a lot of content and applications and systems and things that they need that are just specifically for them. In addition, they need to do things like look up students. And so one of the integrations we created was a student search, and that enables someone to type in the student name or their number, and they'll get taken straight to the application that holds that information about the student. And that's a very high priority feature that our teachers need. And so that's what this kind of hierarchy has come out of our persona development. The other thing we did was, because we decided not to wait until all the content is converted, we needed to provide a search function that actually scans all of our content applications, including our website, including the old intranet pages, as well as other content repositories. So this global search or enterprise search has been implemented so that it scans all of those systems, but the results actually appear within the intranet. So our stakeholders, what did they say? Firstly, we started with content migration with our organisational development or HR department. They were a big customer of ours, and we have been spending the last few months migrating their content over into the intranet. And here's a key quote from our associate director. But I guess the key is picking out some of these key points: easy and agile, supportive, well-being, quickly and easily. Those are the key things. As we reference back to what was our goals, it means that we're ticking the box here. What else has someone said? My boss, Michael Grant. So he is really all about engaging our staff and our students. Engaging experiences is one of our university strategies as well, but also being informed and connected. So that's another key goal we were trying to achieve. And finally, our internal communications manager, and Amy was a key part of this project from the very beginning. And her quote here is really her goal for her own role is to really bring our university staff together to all feel like they're part of the one organisation and we're all aiming for the same thing. And, you know, celebrating each other's successes, being able to call out each other and have a place to be able to celebrate achievements and also get that two-way communication and a little bit of engagement has started to foster around some of our articles. And I think that's the other benefit is now that we're seeing different people starting to engage, we're able to help her meet her strategic objectives as well. So what were the results? Well, firstly, we were able to say we launched within 12 weeks, which was quite an incredible turnaround. And we made a deliberate choice to deploy the intranet on all university devices, forced on all browsers. And you can imagine that a university of free thinking academics probably didn't like that very much, and they didn't. But the fact is that we felt it was important enough to do because it had to be the one-stop shop that every staff member would come to whenever they turned on their Murdoch University device. So I think this was a real key in ensuring that adoption was actually taken up. And just talking back to internal communications, they really embraced this. And as you can see by this graph, what you can see are the number of events and news and announcements that have been published since launch and that exponential growth per month of how many things are being published. And what that demonstrates to me is that people are finding more things to talk about and people are able to now know that they've got a place to publish their information. All communications do point back to the intranet as well. So it's key that our internal communications all drive people back to this place. And ultimately, we were able to decommission 4 old platforms, which is part of our IT strategy. And I guess the other part is that the platform is enabling us to be fast and agile and put the controls in the hands of the people that actually need to use this tool. We, at the same time, also implemented a new email capability that enabled nice emails to be sent out with staff announcements or newsletters. And again, those links were driving back to the intranet so that they could read the full story there. The platform is on brand. It is simple and intuitive to use. But I would say that change management with staff was difficult to achieve despite best efforts. So we did try and set up lunch and learns and showcases and events to try and get people interested in what was coming. And we found that the university at that time was so busy that people didn't really have the time to find out a lot about this, what was coming. And therefore, you know, the change management and adoption was a little bit rocky at the start, but everyone's quickly got over that and are very satisfied with what we've delivered to date. And of course, we had the COVID-19 effect. So we were able to immediately respond and create a whole hub around COVID-19 advice. And as you can imagine, there was a large number of policy and information and updates and all sorts of things coming out at that time. So without this tool, I'm not sure what we would have been able to do other than create an external website. We just did not have the capability before. So this tool really made such a difference to our ability to communicate to our staff around COVID-19. In addition, we also were able to stand up what we call toolkits for working remotely and teaching remotely. And again, none of this information existed prior to COVID-19. And I guess from our HR department's point of view and our internal communications department point of view, the fact that they had the ability to put all of this information in a simple place, one-stop shop, made such a difference to their ability to then focus on the things they should be focusing on. So I think this became the driving force behind the staff adoption for our intranet.
Yeah, I think also with that COVID, you definitely had in the old intranet, you would have had to have gone and found everything individually, whereas this allowed staff to create content and it was automatically filtered back to the hub. There was no additional workarounds and things like that. It all just came back straight away. So yeah, even from a technology point of view, and we were still winding down the end of the project, the speed in which Murdoch were able to run with it by themselves without much technical assistance was quite staggering. And I think the product and the internet really helped drive that.
Absolutely. So what were our lessons learnt? And I guess to cover off and talk about the people, because they are the thing that makes any project successful. The key is having a cross-functional team with the right people in that team and empower them to make the decisions. It was fair to say that the intranet was probably the least problematic project that was going on at the time. So they were allowed to just get on and do things and make things happen. And they had, the confidence and the right people in the room to make the right decisions. So that allowed them to keep moving. But I would say that the real driver behind the communication success is we really needed to plan and resource for communications and content. And by having an internal communications team and having a dedicated people to create content from the very start of the project meant that they were able to get moving very quickly and deploy on the product as quickly as possible. So they were really engaged and trained really from the start. So I think that's a real key in their success. However, the lesson is that we really do need to define our content strategy early. And one of the little hiccups we kept meeting along the way was when we were trying to migrate content from other areas or other platforms, we would kind of bump up to the questions of how should this live in the intranet? Should it be a document? Should it be a content on the page? Should it be a link out to somewhere else? And there were all these questions that kept coming up as we kept having new content migrate. I think we could have avoided a little bit of the hiccups by actually working out that content strategy earlier. However, we have finalised that now, and the team are really actively moving as quickly as possible now because the strategy is much clearer.
Cool. So I guess also including those lessons is that prioritisation of the non-technical elements. I did mention it in the slide, but just to reiterate that again, the internet is great when you can come in and deploy it and it looks all sparkly and shiny, but understanding that not just the content strategy, but everything else that feeds into the internet to ensure that it has longevity. It's not going to become a out-of-date link farm very quickly, and also to understand the roles and the impact that it has across the organisation is understood by everybody, so that it's when you come to the business processes, they're all defined. When you come to a strategy for content and governance, it's already there and available. And once we did prioritise those and got those out of the way, we delivered a great intranet from Murdoch. Also key is I guess understanding that journey, not just the discovery phase, but moving beyond that and getting everybody to on board and understanding the journey that the internet's going to take and where it also fits in the broader scheme for a modern workplace. Once we got the senior executives, finished the discovery phase, we presented to senior executives. I think they understood the journey, but whereas before they had a bit of a blurry idea of what their idea of an intranet is and what their idea of how they participated in it. But once everybody understands the journey and it's the role of the intranet within the organisation and how we're getting from where we are today to where we're going to be tomorrow, that was it was crucial to the project's success and getting everybody on board. And especially at a university, getting those senior executives and senior stakeholders all the way up to the VC to getting them to understand that information and understand the journey. And in layman's terms, it was crucial to that sort of success. And lastly is looking to align on process. So not just the implementation process, but also aligning on the business processes and who's going to be involved, how people are going to be engaged and brought into the project. Initially didn't have a lot of process, especially around involving third parties, whether internal or external for the project. It was a little bit ad hoc, but once we were able to get that get a process in place, we started to move forward, especially engaging other people. Agile was another example where we didn't spend enough time at the start really helping and coaching Murdoch and the stakeholders and their requirements. We moved through various iterations of Agile, where at one stage I think we had all the tasks on our whiteboard as well as sitting in DevOps, so there was some duplication there. Some of the sprint ceremonies weren't as tight-knit as they could be, and also understanding, I guess, that review process wasn't really bedded into the understanding not of just the project team, but also the stakeholders and how they can have some input in that review. And once we did get that full alignment, we really saw the project start to move forward. But yeah, that alignment of process is obviously going to be quite key. So that kind of wraps up the presentation that we had for everybody. So thank you for joining in. We will now, I guess, open up to questions, sort of bring open the intranet as well, just so you can kind of see how that sits currently.
Thank you, Andy and Julie. Does anybody have any questions? You can raise the virtual hand. Well, I have actually one question. I think it's usually when you go to these projects, like, you know, there's always lessons learned, as you mentioned there. But Julie, was there like one thing you wish you have known before started? You know, I personally have usually like in a project, this aha moment, like, okay, now I get it, or something like this. So did you have something like that with this project and process?
I've built intranets before. I guess I've not built an intranet with higher education before, and my aha moment is really around how complicated the different workplaces are within our organisation. We have so many systems and processes and information for all of our staff, and it really has made me even more empathetic to our poor academics who have to navigate everything that we have. And I guess that's given me much more drive to even make things more simple, because their focus should be on teaching our students, not trying to navigate our systems and try and find information. So having seen what some of our academics have to deal with in terms of all of that, the aha is more like a aha, because I just feel like there's so much more work we have to do, and we really have just, you know, we're at the ground floor of our journey, I guess, and I am excited about where do we go from here, and I'm really excited about turning all our old ugly stuff off as well.
So it was a good lesson in a way to your own organization as well. Maybe you have never find these things out like without this project. So I think it's quite interesting.
Correct.
Sometimes you think you're gonna cover this part, but you cover like so many others things as well.
I think the other part is I'm astounded how quickly this has become the place, and how it's been adopted by you know, how quickly we could respond to COVID-19. You know, I'm just so impressed how everyone just, you know, completely changed direction in order to deal with the crisis. And without this platform, we would not have been able to do that at all. So, and I guess that then gave people the room to be able to just do their jobs and not think about technology. The technology is easy, and I'm actually astounded how easy it is. Even I can use it, and I don't know anything about technology. So that's the aha from a Valo point of view. Is that it's very simple.
And that's good, like, because these situations can come up so quickly, so you don't have time to take that huge manual and start browsing from there. Well, thank you for the great answer. We have a question from Martin. You mentioned Valo Idea Management briefly. How was that used as a part of the intranet?
Yeah, so idea management, sorry, Julie. Idea management is really used as that feedback loop. So we find idea management is good for when you have a specific focus, where when it's targeted to collecting a certain type of information. We use idea management in the pilot as an easy way for people to input information and air their concerns in a very sort of friendly environment, and also see people who have the same concern. They can like and also comment on that idea as well, and really drive how drive that idea sharing, idea iteration, and building on top of that as well. So you get to a point where you can where it's a collaborative idea, a collaborative feedback, and somebody might have an idea and somebody say, oh yeah, I have that idea, this is how we can do it, and then you find users are having that discussion before the development team and the project team has had to go and iterate and find out and dig more deeper into that. And I think once or twice people have come up with ideas that not only have enhanced the intranet, but also they've almost come up with it and then come up with a solution for it at the same time. So it's been really good. And then it also stops, I guess, it's a trace of that feedback as well. You're not trying to dig back through emails or trying to save it all in an Excel log even, or a SharePoint list. It's already done. All that management is already done for you, so you can go through and tick off everything as it comes through.
One of the things I found about idea management is that it enabled people to suggest something and then others to vote on it. And another aha moment is how many people were voting on things that simply did not make sense to me, for example. So we've got a lot of academics who've been here a long time, and they wanted a button called webmail. And the idea that web is actually available in your little Microsoft waffle, and that, it was almost like a training opportunity where we could actually one-to-one teach people that you don't need a button on here called webmail. Here, let's show you how to use the Microsoft ecosystem better. And I think that was a really interesting insight to see what was obviously a pain point for them, but they were able to then, almost individually get a little one-on-one training just by us explaining, we're not going to put a button there, but by the way, here's how you find it. So baby steps, but, we're getting there one academic at a time.
Yeah, and you live and learn, like, where are the buttons and no buttons thing. But we have a question from Nick. So Nick Lauder, you can open the camera and ask the question from our lovely speakers.
Thanks. Hi, Andy and Julie. I've just got a quick one. You mentioned a couple of times that you had some change management challenges, I guess, as you were building this. And I think that resonates with anyone that's delivered an intranet before, or even an IT enterprise solution. So I guess looking forwards from here, how do you plan to tackle that ongoing change management or governance of this over the next, 3, 6, 12, 18 months? And by that, I mean, monitoring the adoption, potentially even evolving this intranet or this platform with your organization.
Great question, thank you. Yes, change management. There is a lot happening at the university, and therefore we actually do have some dedicated change management staff within ITS to help all of our projects along. However, I do think that change management is seen as a project support as opposed to what you're talking about, which is this ongoing evolution of adoption and education. So I guess my answer is that me as product owner for this platform doesn't stop now that the product has launched. My job really is to continuously now monitor and evolve the service within this ecosystem, and really look for the opportunities to work out where things don't make sense. And I guess that's my job now, is to monitor that. Getting out into the academic area, I would say, is the biggest challenge, because they also are going through quite a lot of change within their job roles themselves. So the intranet are almost, and this digital workplace is almost secondary to the other things that are happening in their world. But my other, I guess, goal is to stay very connected with academics, and I really value the relationships I've got, and I try and keep in contact with them. This project now has gone into a BAU operation now, which is within my portfolio, and experience design is one of my key, I guess, objectives. And I have dedicated experience designers, and their job is actually to continuously go out and seek feedback, look at what is actually happening, and bring back ideas to enhance and evolve whatever product we're talking about, whether that is for students, staff, or the general public.
I think, and also to add to Julie, as a part of those non-technical priorities, governance was key to that as well. Having a dedicated governance set of activities, so that when the project does move into BAU, those activities can be scheduled by Julie, who sees the owners of those activities and sees the activity sheets and goes, well, here, this is for you guys, the user experience team, go back and collect the analytics, or go back and have a look at the feedback that's been done in the last month and see if there's things that we need to take out of that and implement and start to iterate on those, as well as having a look at, I guess, the technical teams and the BAU technical teams to understand, have there been any pain points? Is something going slowly from an analytics side of view, and how they can address that? And even getting communications involved and seeing, well, what were the articles that had the most impact in the last few months, to make sure that everybody has that information on hand and can continue to iterate and build this great platform that we've got.
The other thing I would say is that we're also having regular quarterly debriefs with Insight, who bring us the latest features and functions of Valo, or anything else that they're seeing in the market, to really then allow us to make a decision of whether we adopt whatever the new feature or function is and what we do with it from there. So the goal is not to have this decay. It is to actually continue to look for opportunities. And for example, with idea management, while we've taken it off the homepage now because new ideas have started to dry up, we will repurpose that now for something else. So we might give it a different focus, but say have ideas around a specific project or ideas around a specific initiative, and create the same technology delivery, but give it a new name and allow people to contribute that way. So I guess, yeah, from a governance point of view, it is down to me and down to my accountability.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Is there any other questions? We have still a few minutes left. If somebody has some insights they would like to ask. But hey, sorry.
I was just going to say, whether you wanted to have a look at the site itself, the way in which it works is that it's dynamic and actually, delivers, when you type in, delivers results on page. So I think that's a very valuable feature to enable people to quickly access whoever they're trying to reach. The other part of this is the My Tools function and the ability, as Valo gives us, to have our own links popped in here. So I think that was an excellent feature. And then just with Teamwork, we initiated that and was able to create a one-stop shop for all of the team sites that people are members of. So there's lots of features that we've deployed that are out of the box, I guess, and we feel have really enhanced the overall service to staff.
I think that's really interesting. I think it's interesting to see the real life stories and how it was in practice. But thank you, Andy. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. I think it was really insightful. And we have few minutes to the next session. So I will grab a coffee because it's early here in the northern Europe, and I think for you guys, you get ready for the happy hour with maybe some different kind of beverages. Thank you, everybody, and see you in 7 minutes.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.